All right, everyone, now it's impeachment time again. The hearings themselves in the House are now over. I believe now it gets spiked over to the Senate, where it's basically DOA. Here's a big problem for the Democrats is twofold right now. If you look at polling, we've got the latest poll on impeachment has an Emerson poll showing that actually by 2 points more people oppose than approve of the idea of impeaching Donald Trump. That's really bad for the Democrats because Trump is not a popular sitting president. His approval hovers in the mid-40s. His disapproval rate is in the mid-50s. So if support for impeachment is any higher than his approval, if opposition to it is any lower than disapproval, that potentially benefits him by taking some of those soft opposition individuals and putting them more in the not sure category or even lean Trump category. The Democrats could drive millions of voters to Trump. This would be the death knell of their possibility of winning in some of the closest swing states. Put others on the table that right now, in some cases, depending on the matchup, don't look like they're in play, like Biden, supposedly, if he's nominated. And he's still favored to be nominated based on the numbers he has. He's a good 10 points ahead of his nearest opponent. He would clobber Trump supposedly in Michigan. Well, if you nudge it 3 or 4 points to the side, he no longer does that. He's breaking even with him. This could be a problem. The second problem, though, has nothing to do with the presidential election. It has to do with the U.S. House. You see, a lot of the Democrats that are in the U.S. House right now, they're in red districts. They're Democrats that were elected running on platforms that are essentially not left-wing at all. They're like, hey, don't rock the boat. They're like the good old boy Democrats, especially in southern and midwestern areas. Hey, I'm not here to rock the boat. Don't worry. I don't have too much in common with those morons in the DNC. I'm just a Democrat because my grandpappy was a Democrat. Don't worry. I'm a good old boy, though. Will they survive if the Democratic Party forces them to vote in favor of impeachment? See, this is a really sticky situation. Right now, the GOP's got a massive ad campaign going on that's starting to really rattle some of those Democrats. They're being run against on the auspices that they're impeaching a president who in those districts is still relatively popular. That's not going to work very well for them. Now let's imagine two scenarios, because there's only two to go on. Trump is or is not impeached in the House vote. Senate removal doesn't matter. He's not going to be removed by the Senate. There's virtually a zero chance of that. Barring any additional information, he won't be removed by the Senate. The Democrats' impeachment will fail. It'll be just like Bill Clinton, and Trump will probably gain approval. That being said, let's look at what happens in the House. Let's say that those people ultimately don't vote for impeachment. This fucks the Democrats harder than a bolt of lightning. It absolutely destroys them because they will see a schism within their own party where at least a small minority of Democrats in the House refuse to support impeachment. They could fail on a simple majority vote. They could fail to even begin impeachment proceedings. The Democrats could literally fail to solidify their support for impeachment in the first place. That would make Pelosi look weak. It would make the DNC look fractured. It would give the Republicans a million guffaws and virtually ensure Trump's re-election. He would sit there and he would rake them over the coals, stir the pot, and get the far left mobilized against the neolibs, this is exactly what Pelosi was seeking to avoid initially. She didn't want an official inquiry, official hearings. All she wanted was an unofficial situation where they could selectively leak a handful of tidbits out to the media to make it look like they were serious about possibly sort of impeaching Trump. Now let's say that they do impeach him. Let's say that those Democrats do vote for impeachment. He still isn't removed from office. He'll be the one facing them in 2020. He'll use that as an opportunity to bash the down-ballot House Democrats out of existence. They'll lose dozens of seats. They will probably lose their House majority, which means that next time around, they're not going to have a majority to be able to impeach Trump at all. And he'll take credit for that, by the way, if reelected, which would still be a pretty good chance. His odds of being reelected are highest if the Democrats attempt to impeach, which is likely, and then fail, which is unlikely, but it is now a possibility because you've got some dozens of down-ballot Democrats getting more and more worried. What's Nancy Pelosi going to bribe them with? The DNC's broke. They don't even have the money to throw at these people and say, well, look, yeah, you're going to lose your seat, but don't worry, we'll get you into a mayoral run next time. Here's a contract. We promise to back your next 2 political runs to the tune of $1 million in your butt-fuck town that nobody's ever heard of. So you just got to sway 13 voters. Don't worry about it too much. Some of these people represent districts that are very red. They tend towards being conservative districts. They go beyond party dynamics because you'd think, well, if they're conservative, they'd back a Republican. There are conservative Democrats, lots of them. Dozens of them within the U.S. House. There are a few conservative Democrats in the Senate, like Joe Manchin. Well, kind of conservative. He's from West Virginia, of all places. Democrats have trouble in places like West Virginia unless they act a lot like Republicans. This, by the way, has already caused problems. Remember when Manchin crossed lines to vote for Kavanaugh? That was a big thing among the Democrats. Oh my God, we've got to force Joe Manchin out. We can't allow him in the party anymore because the idea is this. The Democrats have gotten so nuts because of the far left element of their party that they keep trying to wine and dine, which they know is a bad idea, but they think they have no choice. They're being so conciliatory to the far left that they're not able to compromise, negotiate with, and govern properly along with the Republican Senate majority and president. That's what this boils down to. It's a dysfunction in government that's caused by the far left. The far left has managed to lock down the system by threatening Nancy Pelosi and the neolibs. The so-called leftists in the Dem Party that aren't really leftists, they're basically the same as a Bush Republican. They have the same ideas. Little bit anti-war occasionally, but only when their dude's not in office. They had no problem with Obama's warmongering, bless you. They don't have any problem with the idea of corporate welfare. Monopolism. It's not capitalism or strictly socialism in the welfare sense. They give welfare crumbs to minority communities in order to get their votes perpetually and then pretend that they've magically solved the problem or that the problem that does persist is their opponent's fault. The neolibs are the scum of the earth. That being said, that the far leftists are worse. The far leftists don't even know how to govern. They certainly can't govern this country. They don't have a mandate to do so. They can't even take over the Democratic Party, but they are making life difficult for the Pelosi types. That's what it boils down to. I see a very, very bleak election ahead for the Democrats, one that a lot of the Democrats themselves don't see, because they expected impeachment would start off with a bang. We'd get bombshell reporting day one that would cast doubt on Trump's continued presidency. He'd be impeached almost immediately. The Senate would be forced to remove him by strong independent women like Nancy Pelosi and AOC. McConnell would cock. He'd bend over backwards, and they would remove Trump, and then probably remove Pence, and then Nancy Pelosi will be president, and magically everything will get better. This is what some of these people believed would happen and want to happen. They're unrealistic. They don't understand how politics works. They don't understand anything about civics. Their understanding of U.S. politics is more from Karl Marx's manifesto than it is from anything in U.S. law. Well, they failed already before they began. The Democratic Party doesn't have the votes to remove Trump from office. How are you going to convince, they have to convince like 12 Republican senators to vote to remove him? On what basis? You may not even surpass the House. If the Democrats initiate a House vote, and you have more than 2 or 3 Democrats decide to cross lines and vote against it, Pelosi's out, the Dems are out of the House, the 2020 election's pretty much figured out at that point. Barring a dark horse candidate not involved with the current political fiasco coming out at the last minute to say, well, these people can't beat Trump, I can, please listen to reason, and actually manages to make it stick. It'd be funny if it was Hillary Clinton. She gets nominated, the third time's a charm, she gets nominated, still loses. I can't think of anyone else qualified to run. Who else do they have? Obama can't save him. He's already been president for 2 terms. By the way, the idea that if Trump gets impeached, he gets a 3rd term is actually completely wrong. I don't know exactly where people are getting that mythology from. It's about active terms. His term isn't canceled by having been impeached. It would be canceled by having been removed from office. In theory, if he's removed from office, that's a different story, but he's not going to get removed. Again, the Senate is run by Republicans. The Republicans gained a couple of seats in the Senate in the last midterms where they already had a slim majority. They're not even in danger in the Senate. When this election was looming in the immediate wake of 2016, when I looked at the map of the Senate and the races that would be up, the slots that would be up the next year, I said the Republicans have to worry about the Senate in 2020. I no longer think that. No, I don't think that they have to worry about the Senate. They're looking at possibly picking up the House, as well as Trump winning more states in the general election. I think it's funny when people are pessimistic. All you got to do is look at the state-to-state battles. Trump is a master of strategy. He and the Republicans have a lot more money and are pounding the down-ballot Democrats, and they're going to keep doing it for the next year. That's something that, by the way, on the national scale, like in big headline reporting, you're not going to hear anything about that. They're focused on Trump. They're focused on the presidential race. Look at the House. Look at what's happening. You've got House members in the Democratic Party grumbling about the impeachment vote because they're like, hey, what do you expect me to do? I vote for impeachment, lose my job. I don't vote for impeachment, I probably lose my job because I lose the DNC's backing. Between a cock and a hard place. I would vote against it just despite the DNC, and I guarantee there will be more than one Democrat probably that's going to do that. It's the death knell of their impeachment proceedings. That's about all. Peace out.